This is Earthmovers
with Alison Mariella Désir, Stefanie Flippin, and Verna NezBegay Volker.
A trail podcast reclaiming the narrative.
All right, welcome everyone to our very first episode of Earthmovers. I'm Stefanie Flippin, one of your co-hosts here. I am joined by my good friends Alison and Verna. Hi, you two. How's everything going?
Good. Nervous
Good.
about this.
Nervous.
It's happening.
It's happening.
It is happening.
Yeah. Well, let's kick things off here. What have both of you been up to?
I'll jump in.
Yeah, go for it.
Have been wild as usual. I'm a mom. I'm currently solo parenting. My son turned 6 recently. So managing his life is a full-time job. But I also started a full-time job as a therapist. I've been seeing clients for a while now, but joined a new practice. And it's amazing work. But I also now have all of these people's stories in my head. So there's that. And, just last month, although it seems like a year ago, I hosted a trail race here in Seattle, Washington. That was a huge success. 66% of folks who participated were first-time trail runners. It was one of the most racially, ethnically diverse trail races I've ever experienced. So, nonstop action over here. What about you, Verna? What's going on in your world? Mom of 4, 3?
Yeah. I've been busy as usual. My kids finished school, of course, and we just got done traveling out in the Southwest. And my oldest son is 21, and so we were able to see him because he's out in Colorado, and he's in this indie band in Colorado. So he plays the guitar. So he told us he had a concert, which we were happy, but it started at 9:30 at night. So I'm like, okay, son, we'll be there. But I've been busy. I have been training. 3 years ago, I attempted a 100-miler. Got to 94, ran out of time. I thought, you know what, I'm never doing this thing again. So I'm doing it again in like 11 days. And so I've been training.
Wait, can we just pause on that? Because that is like famous last words by every single athlete I know. I'm never doing that again.
So I have 11 days. And so actually I'm surprised I'm functioning here because I did a run at 4 p.m. yesterday, and I got home I finished up at 4 a.m. this morning. And so I just got done. So I just been home, and I think I slept for 3 hours. So yeah, so that's been just kind of like one of those things I just want to check off my list and then move on with my life.
Yeah, I'm so sure you're going to move on.
Verna, which 100-mile race are you running? I know previously you lined up at Dark Anchor in Savannah, right?
Yes.
With Rough Runners.
Yeah, so I'm going to be doing the milestone events. They are inclusive, like all-inclusive trail running, and I feel their understanding of they want people to finish. So you have plenty of time, and so you have a crew there. I mean, they have everything provided, which is going to be nice. So it's like a VIP, I guess, 100-miler.
Amazing.
So yeah, so that's what's up.
Cool. And then where is this race located?
It's in the Redwoods, California.
Oh my gosh, that'll be beautiful. And you'll get nice weather too.
Yes.
Yeah, for some reason I had in my mind that you were like traveling south again, but then I was like, that can't be right. It is the peak heat of summer. That would be disgusting to go to the right now.
Right. It's so hot. It's so hot.
That will be so fun. And yeah,
what do you got going on, Steph?
Yeah. Oh. Well, I know. Before I dive into what I've been enjoying this summer, I was going to say too that I really enjoyed your recent Instagram post about transitioning to seeing patients full time, largely because I dove into some research. I would say like a couple years ago, just about the lack of representation in terms of not just like people of color being in the mental health space as providers, but like female, like women, people of color in that space, and just the importance of, I mean, you as a counselor and a therapist, like you are inherently a safe space, right, for the clients
Mm,
and the patients that you see. And if you
mm,
don't have someone that looks like you or someone represented in what is supposed to be a safe space, it can often not feel like a safe space, right? So anyhow,
totally.
I have just felt incredibly proud of you, and also
Mm,
just I just feel like your clients are and patients are just so fortunate to have you represented in that space. Like I
thank
can't underscore that
you.
Yeah.
enough. So
Thank you.
yeah, I know, like from personal experience, like I'm not currently seeing patients like in the office, and I'm not currently operating, but I received that feedback a lot, like in the last
Yeah.
decade. You know,
Yeah.
I mean,
I
there's
met with a client this week
mhm,
who has, she's indigenous, and she has only had white therapists. And
yeah,
while her experience with white therapists were wonderful,
hmm
she never got to dive into this piece of identity
yeah,
Yeah.
and a sense of disconnection from her culture, right?
yeah,
Like racially, ethnically feeling indigenous,
hmm
but
Mm.
culturally feeling so disconnected. And
yeah,
she was like, I've never gotten to talk about that. And I was like, are you kidding? Like, I
Oh.
love this stuff. We're going to go
yeah,
so deep.
yeah.
So it
No,
really
I
is powerful.
truly, like, I just feel like, again, like inherently, like your job is to be this safe space for
Yeah.
others. And it makes me so, so happy for your patient base that they have you. And they can
Thank you,
connect
Steph.
on those types of issues. Cause as we know, everything is interconnected, right?
Absolutely.
As much like education and as like as well meaning as someone can be, it's really difficult, right, for them to
Right.
actually like truly empathize because they just simply
Access it.
haven't lived it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Anyways, I just wanted to touch on that before. I didn't want to move on without touching on that.
Thank you. You've got
Yeah,
therapist vibes,
yeah,
Steph.
I know.
She does. She does.
Yeah, but yeah, I have in terms of what I've been up to. This is like peak, just racing season. Both like I'm a coach, so I have had, gosh, like to Verna's point, like just 100 miler after 100 miler after 100 miler for a lot of my athletes, and not to just elevate that distance, but just a ton of trail racing going on, and then of course like preparing for fall marathons and whatnot. So it's like we hit Western States. I had a solid team racing there, and then from there it's just kind of been every weekend since. So a lot of prep. Me personally, I love this season. I love getting out up like under my local mountain range. I've been trying to take on as many sort of like establishing as many fastest known times as possible. That's not necessarily because I'm like, oh, I just want to like get all these workouts in or log all these fast times. It's actually because I got really interested in doing it in terms of like that, not to bring up politics, but everything is inherently political these days. But the bill that was set forth with the land that was for sale, that didn't end up going through, at least not yet, in terms of like the land sale. But at the same time, a lot of the land that was up for sale is like my local training grounds and like a lot of the local mountain peaks that my husband and I intentionally moved to where we did so that we could have access to those mountains for training. So it's been kind of important to me to get out there and sort of just get content even too on those trails. Some of them aren't as heavily used as like some of the more popular 14ers here, like in the just Denver Front Range area. So I wanted to just sort of gather videos, photos, and like actually spend time on each of those trails that aren't as used as much, and sort of put something together. Um, Honestly, like just in case like that land goes up for sale again, so that I have something special that maybe I can utilize in the future to really help protect those lands. So that was kind of a project that I decided to take on this summer that I would have been out there anyway doing it with my training. So
That's, well, one, that's so powerful.
oh yeah.
Two, I feel like you're speaking another language because I mean, I've been to Colorado,
Sure.
but not really with the intent to trail run. My husband
Mm-hmm.
lived there for a little while and
Yeah.
was always out there. But I don't know. I see you hosting a retreat, a trail running
Oh,
retreat, maybe
yeah.
an
Yeah.
Earthmovers trail
Yes,
running
I
retreat.
would love that. Oh
Oh,
my
that
gosh.
sounds like a good idea.
Right?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
know. I have been wanting to host a retreat out here. We have plenty of space. It's so beautiful, and tons of like really accessible trails too.
Mm,
Allison, going back to when we had the panel for the We Out Here Trail Fest, and we interviewed you and Aaliyah. And then, of course, our good friends Myrna and Kayla. When Aaliyah responded about how you two like chose even like St. Edward's Park for the trail
Mhm.
race, like all of those elements, I've over the years I've really thought about those elements too of like just the parking, right? Like
Mm.
proximity to like, you
Right.
know, more of not like an urban environment, but like proximity to feel safe, like staying in like certain hotels or Airbnbs, all those different types of things. So I've been keeping that on the forefront of my mind for a potential future retreat. So
Awesome.
yeah.
Verna, I want to connect with you about the issues that Steph is talking about regarding land and land for sale. The idea that the U.S. government could even be selling land, and just the
No.
Right.
work that you do, and if you could give us some context around all of this, how you feel, how your community may be feeling.
I think it's been hard. I think sometimes that term public lands is thrown around a lot, and we always have to remind people like that's native lands. And we have a term that we use, a lot called land back,
Mm,
and there's so much more to that. It's like, returning land to indigenous people who have always owned that land, and that's happening with like different tribes. Um, but there's so much more, I think, because I was just home and I was running on like where I grew up, and there's like oil like pumps that are kind of scattered because that's where they drill oil. And it just kind of took me back to that word, that phrase, like land back means so much more. It's like reconnecting ourselves to the land. It's protecting and speaking out upon that. And so there's always just kind of, we struggle with that because we know that everywhere is native land, but we haven't felt like we've seen little bits of it coming back, returning to people. But I guess always it's like humbling and not humbling, but like sad because we truly will never get it back. But those who still own the land, like especially like the Navajo Nation, for us to go home is like a connection to where we came from, and that means so much more to us, that we're just grateful that we have that whole land area. But yeah, it's hard. It's hard to see it. But we see good things happening. But I hope more people, especially like race companies, race directors, companies, whatever, they are acknowledging it. But I hope the understanding is that it's beyond that. It means so much more so to us, that is a connection to who we are. So, but yeah, I don't know if that's kind of, it makes sense, but I've been,
makes makes
yeah,
total
I,
Yeah.
sense.
yeah, I've been thinking a lot about that because, um, you know, I think just because I was just home,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm,
I was just thinking about, this is where my family grew up. This is where my Navajo people, my ancestors, were. And it saddens me that there's like oil pipes or, these pumping
mm,
things everywhere. It just makes it look ugly. But
Mm-hmm.
that's the reality of
Mm,
just how things are today. So yeah.
yeah.
mm,
Verna, I was wondering too if you could just share a little bit more. I know that you had an indigenous friend and sister come in. I think it was her and her partner, right?
Right.
Did they come in from Australia?
Yes. So
Yeah.
Georgia Weir is a woman who I've met before I created in Native Woman Run. And she does what I do, but she does it in Australia. So
Okay.
she's from an indigenous, her and her husband are indigenous. And so it was cool to just see her in person.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was her tour guide basically. And we took her around where I come from, all the different parts of the Navajo Nation, to the Grand Canyon.
mm.
And it
Which
was
is
just,
on fire right now,
I
right?
know, yeah. So like the
Yeah.
north side was on fire, and so we were able to get to the south side.
Mm-hmm.
But it was just nice because even though we're worlds apart, like, but there's very similar things that we deal with as Indigenous people, and we just found so many things that were very similar, that we both also that were the same and
Mm,
different, but also our connection as Indigenous women leaders in the running space and the things that we have to go through
yeah.
for our people. So that was comforting to be with someone who understood
Hmm.
what I go through. And so I think that was kind of what I got from that whole weekend. I was just like, oh, I
Yeah.
felt like we were on these like long drives, and we would just share things that we've
Mm.
gone through as Indigenous women leaders. And so that was comforting. So that was really
Yeah,
cool.
that
Yeah.
that had to have been really powerful to be able to
Mhm.
connect like across geographical, borders and whatnot. I think a lot of times we always think about these types of issues in the context of being just here, here in the United States. And like I said, that must have been incredibly powerful to have those conversations and to connect with Georgia on them.
Yeah, and so I'm going to be going to the Sydney Marathon, and so she's going to be hosting me. So
Amazing.
yeah, so I'm excited to just meet where she comes from, meet her family, and all that. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Awesome. I'd love to hear more from her too at some point, just about like her experience, like leading a group like that in Australia,
yeah,
and just some of the issues that maybe she faces there. And yeah, thank you
for
for
sure.
sharing.
Yeah.
Verna, I'd love to know about this training, right? We sort of, I mean, we talked about it, but then like glazed over this massive undertaking that you have coming up, this 100 miler. Tell me about your long runs. Tell me what you're wearing to train. Like, tell me more.
Yes. Yes, I'm actually wearing Ultra shoes, and I just started wearing Ultra like a couple, I would say 6 months ago. So I've been
Mm.
training for 6 months, and um,
And why
that
ultras?
yeah, because I have wide feet, and
Okay.
so other shoes always made my feet cramp. And so I feel like there's space. It's like my toes are free. And also, just as you know, Stephanie, we get blisters and our feet go through so much in ultra running. So I think ultra has been the shoe that and the zero drop has been really helpful.
I've absolutely I've heard that too about just the comfort, right? Allowing your foot to be in a natural position, the space, the just an incredible, incredible shoe.
Yeah, and I think their phrase is, "Your feet should be free." Like, it's like it's like a little phrase that they have, so, but yeah, the training's been crazy. I've been training for 6 months. My coach is from Germany, and so he's been coaching me for since 2018, getting me through 50 milers, 100 Ks, um, and I think it's just I'm ready. I'm ready to be done, and we train by hours on our feet, so that's been really helpful. So I don't know, Stephanie, like, you know, being an ultra, runner and a coach, um, I know there's so many different ways of to like, just trying to. I'm curious about also you, like how you train your ultra runners. Like, what's especially for a 100 miler, how do you lay that out?
Yeah. I mean, you've brought up great points here in terms of making sure you get like the adequate time on feet. And it always depends, right? It depends on like the athlete's personal experience, what types of races and distances they've done in the past. But really, I think it's also just getting the athlete comfortable with like really solid fueling and hydration too for very long periods of time. I don't necessarily like just because we're training for a 100 miler, I don't necessarily start just throwing enormous like amounts of volume in an athlete. We really build into it. I'm someone who's like a huge fan of like accumulation in terms of back to back long runs and just really sort of getting the stimulus in that way. Sort of in the old school approach was like these getting these mega long runs in, right? Like 40 plus miles in one single go. And I think, at least for me, right, my background as a physician and just being extremely passionate, especially like in terms of like women's health, we're just starting to see that like those really intense long time on feet, like it isn't necessarily something that like every athlete needs to do. Of course, I encourage jumping into like a 50-mile race, or maybe even going as far as like 100K if that's something that the athlete isn't, comfortable. They haven't done in the past. But yeah, I like to sort of like stack long runs. So maybe like a 22 to 25 miler one day, then like an 18 to 20 miler the second day, just so that we're sort of giving the skeleton and just like the bones in general a bit of a break. Always like with the overarching goal of getting to the start line healthy. And really, like I said, being able to work through and really dial in nutrition and hydration. I think those two components are enormous, especially in a warming world too.
Right, for
Um,
sure.
yeah.
For sure.
Also, I mean, your mention of feeling good in ultras and like you personally having a wide foot, I feel like that also ties into a bit of like the origin of our name, Earthmovers.
Mm.
And not to keep putting you on the spot, Verna, but you were just,
Right.
this is not like a personal interview by any means. But just to share like a little bit more with our listeners, I know we put up a post on our Instagram account explaining a little bit more, but I think, Alison and I we were all in when you brought up the potential for Earthmovers to be our podcast name. Do you want to share a little bit more about that for anyone who maybe didn't see our Instagram post?
Yes, yes. So I get so many followers, and I have this friend who's Navajo, and she shared that story about how her family was sheep herders. Navajo people. That's kind of our main uh, thing that we do. Our resource with sheep, and she talked about how her grandmother, examined the feet of these cousins. They're all laying together, and she gets to her, and she's anticipating that her she wants a seal of approval that
Mm.
she's an earth mover, and she says that I want earth mover feet too. I wake up before I hear her say anything, but really I know the answer. And she told me the story. We kind of were just kind of in a conversation of I think it was one of my posts, and how she was just so supportive. And so she shared that story with me. And what really hit me was she said, I have wide feet. They take up every inch of shoe. They grip the earth when I walk barefoot. I'm an earth mover. And she said, and so are you. And I don't know why, but
Mm.
I'm getting emotional. And
Yeah.
so when we talked about that, and I just thought, like, all three of us,
Yeah.
we're all outside. We're all doing things to elevate our voices, our
Mm.
communities. And I thought, what a great way. Because, Allison, you were just, you did this huge hike. Like,
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
I was thinking about you, and I was like, there she is. She's an earth mover. And,
Mm-hmm.
you, Stephanie, I saw you, one of your posts where you're running in Colorado. And I just thought that just totally makes sense of who we are,
Mm.
for our communities, and for just ourselves, that we're earth movers. And I I told this friend that we were using this name, and she just said, thank you so much. And she just
Mm.
said, thank you so much for all you do. And she's very humbled by it. And I thought
Mm.
that was just really, I love it. I love the cool name. And
Yeah.
I was just wearing my sweatshirt. And so, yeah, it's cool.
I know. I mean, not to be too corny with this, but I also really love like the mention of like I have wide feet. They take up every like inch of the shoe. I feel like that's also like another parallel of just like taking up as much space,
Yes.
on the trail in each other's lives, all of it, right?
Right.
And not being afraid to sort of shrink away, right, from taking up that space. I really like
Right.
that parallel too.
Yeah. So cool.
Yeah.
Something that struck me this time, Verna, when you told the story is that, and I didn't think about it before, but my father gave me the nickname Powdered Feet
I was thinking
when
that
I was,
too.
and I
Yes.
was like,
Oh,
whoa,
yes.
wait
Yeah.
a second. So many feet things happening.
Yeah.
But this, right, Powdered Feet comes from a Haitian Creole saying
Oh,
that describes somebody who's so active, you never see them, just the footprints they've left in powder. And I love when moments like this happen because we realize that the three of us come from very different cultures. And yet, in all of our cultures, there is this appreciation of connection to the land, right? Connection to movement, to taking up space, which when we all, for me, when my parents, immigrants came to this country, were then sort of told that we are not outdoors people, right?
mm,
Like we lose
Right.
this
yeah.
connection to the earth,
Right.
despite the
Mm,
fact that we have been connected to the land forever, right? Our
Right.
ancestors. And that makes me think again about the purpose of this podcast, to reclaim the narrative, right? Like,
Yeah.
we've all been sold this story, and many brands and organizations continue to sell this story that we are new to this space, right? And we are meant to feel as though we don't belong in these spaces that are ours as much as anybody else's, right? And so I think that's really powerful, because I'm excited about the guests that we're going to have that are going to
Yeah.
tell
Right.
stories that, like, people who we don't hear from. There's a select group of
Exactly.
people who get to be on every podcast, who get to retell their story. And I'm excited to bring in folks who have not had those opportunities, who
Yeah.
are earth movers and earth shakers, right?
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
earth shakers, yes.
Yeah, I'm excited to have those conversations too, because I feel like when other, maybe like people of color who are in the trail space, in the endurance world, I think sometimes, like, not very often when they are given those opportunities, I feel like the conversation is really centered more around, like, what did your training look like for this race, or like, and that there's nothing wrong with that, right? I'm a coach, like, we're all athletes here. It's always enjoyable to hear about those types of things, but I am more interested in diving deeper, right? And having those connections and discussing those types of topics, like, hey, like, you'd offhandedly mentioned, like, this, like, microaggression, right, that you encountered, like, at this training camp. Like, can we, if you feel comfortable about it, can we dive a little bit further into it and just really, like, sort of like pull on those threads a little bit more, and just, like, have those conversations. I know sometimes they can be uncomfortable, but it's really important to, right? And not just, and not on, like, the negative side of things too, but like we're all saying, like, reclaiming the narrative here. Like, trail running,
Absolutely.
as I always say, is inherently indigenous, right? And it
Right.
inherently is. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to these conversations.
To your
But
point about not
yeah,
just the negative, the
yeah,
positive piece also is to acknowledge the incredible brands that
yeah,
are doing the work of supporting
Yep.
yeah.
people to the trails, right? One
Hmm.
of whom is Ultra. When we put together this podcast, we reached out to Ultra almost immediately,
Hmm.
Yep.
and they very quickly said, yes, we want to support you, right?
Yeah.
And I was really excited about this because I've seen the work that Ultra is doing to bring
Hmm.
in athletes who typically aren't in the trails, despite having long ancestral histories of
Hmm.
taking up space in the trails, right?
Yeah.
Between the camps that they support, the individual athletes they support, they really are a brand that's putting their money where their mouth is,
Yeah.
standing behind their values. And so it's really exciting to me that we get to partner, we get to live out, our values,
Hmm.
Right.
by connecting with people and companies that support the same work we do.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, big thank you, to Ultra, for supporting the podcast. We're
Yes.
extremely appreciative of that. But yeah, I mean, okay. So Verna mentioned this. We kind of just offhandedly mentioned this little hike that you have been doing.
Yeah. Oh, yeah,
That
this
you
little
were
hike.
that you
You know,
you were away doing, Allison. For our listeners, I mean, you may have been, unless you've been living under a rock. Allison climbed Mount Kilimanjaro for the second time, correct?
yes.
And then, like, the second consecutive year in a row. What brought you back? I mean,
Mm,
like, I would, of course, myself want to go back, too. It's just, like, so beautiful there. But
yeah.
what brought you back? What made you want to go down there, and do a second summit? I know our good friend Aaliyah, also went and
Yeah.
participated. But yeah, tell us a little bit more.
Yeah, I never thought I'd be somebody to say this, but, like, the mountains call to you, truly, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
after when I returned last time, and it wasn't just the mountain, it was the experience of connection to the people there, and really feeling such a sense of peace while being there, which is kind of odd, right? Like, it's one of the most difficult things I've ever done, and yet you feel this sense of peace, recognition that you are so small in this world, right? Like, I really love that reminder whenever I'm outdoors, and it's particularly strong when I'm in climbing Kilimanjaro. And also this piece of when I climbed last year, so many people reached out to me and said, I had never considered doing that. Like, that wasn't even on my radar. Can you go back so that I can go too? And that to me is so touching that one, people are uncovering new things they're interested in, right? If you don't see it, you can't be it, right? So maybe somebody never even thought about this before. And two, that they want me to be their guide, right? So if you're listening to this, please don't ask me to go back and climb a third time. I will be going back to Kilimanjaro, but for a marathon. But when it's almost like when people ask, can you support me to do something that I've wanted to do that I haven't seen people like me do, I'm a yes. So it was, I mean, it was really difficult this time. I did not get to train like I did last time. But the biggest wins for me were reconnecting with the guides and porters who, man, I miss them. They miss me. It was like meeting family again. And then to see my friends, old friends like Aaliyah, new friends, like people who I met for the first time on the trip, do something so difficult. And not everybody summited, but everybody experienced time on the mountain doing something so challenging that for sure has changed their life. So, man, just an incredible journey.
That's so cool. Can you tell us more about this race that you're gonna?
Yes. Okay. So there's a Kilimanjaro 5K half marathon and marathon in March. And, you know, there right now in well, globally, there is this like obsession with the marathon majors. And don't get me wrong, like those are
Yeah.
great cities. They are fun races, but those are not the only races that exist, right? You could say the same
Yes.
thing about trail running, that there is
Yes.
an obsession
Yeah,
about
for
certain trail
sure.
races,
Mhm.
UTMB, right? Everybody gets really almost hung up on doing a
Mhm.
certain thing.
Yeah.
And I love Tanzania. I love the town, the city of Kilimanjaro. And so I thought, let me give people another opportunity to get
Mm.
out there, see a beautiful place, connect with incredible people. So
Mhm.
I challenge everybody listening, myself included,
Yeah.
to
Mhm.
do things not just because everybody's doing them or because there's like a cool medal, right? But
Yeah.
think about like, what do I really want for me?
Mm.
Right. That's a good point because, like you said, the majors, things like that, people are just so popular, like trail races. And again, I really like these grassroots races that
Mhm.
are smaller. Um, for example, Stephanie, you mentioned
Mhm.
Dark Anchor,
Yeah.
which, I ran, the almost 100-miler. But Jason Green, the race director, doesn't take any sponsorships. Like it's all grassroots. He's said no to sponsorships because of the fact is like he wants to keep it grassroots. And when you go to his races, he just welcomes you. And I think, uh, like I want to brag about that race. Like
Yeah.
everyone
Mm.
should. I mean, I don't know if everyone, it's a 3-mile-ish loops, and you got to do those 3-mile-ish loops
Okay, so
along.
everybody does not need to do that, but
But like, it's if you want to do this mental thing,
Yeah.
but like, but I mean, even in itself, I just like to brag about that whole, like they're called the Yeti Trail Runners,
Yes.
and
Mm.
how they make it just available wherever they can. And I think that just says a lot about the race directors too, of how they're very intentional about the races and they just made you feel welcome. And I'm always like bragging about Jason Green, and he's
Yeah.
he's a great guy. So yeah.
Yeah, Jason is so wonderful. And for our listeners, I accidentally misspoke earlier. I had Dark Anchor in my mind. I knew it was in Savannah, and I mentioned Rough Runners. They're another like wonderful race
Okay.
organization in the Georgia area. But yes, Dark Anchor is put on by our good friend Jason Green with Yeti Trail Runners, and he's definitely someone. Anytime we have these types of conversations about like, who is actually like doing the work in this space, who is
Yep.
already being change maker, versus us going out to different race organizations and being like, hey, it would be really wonderful if you implemented XYZ. Jason Green of Yeti Trail Runners is someone that has been doing that work for a long time.
For a very long time.
Yeah,
Yep. Hmm.
extremely appreciative of him and just the way
Yeah.
he moves in the space.
Steph, I want to
Yeah.
actually follow up with you because
Mhm.
I mean what I love about us is that is that we are all so different, have such different
Sure.
experiences in the trail, cultural backgrounds
Sure.
that I mean I'm not gonna say never, but 100-miler is like not at all on any
Sure.
vision board that I have. And yet here
I
I am with
respect that.
200 milers, one who's a professional elite athlete. So anyway, but all of that to say,
Yeah.
I'm excited to hear more from you, not just
Mm,
now, but through this series about your experiences as an elite athlete
sure.
in this space, because
Yeah.
unfortunately there are so few elite athletes in trail running in particular, but in running in general,
Yeah.
that are outspoken, that use the
Hmm.
platform that they have to
Yeah.
make changes. For the
Hmm.
most part, I've actually seen regular, quote unquote,
Sure.
recreational runners who are driving this. And
Yeah.
I wonder for you, do you think it's because of people are like fearful of losing
Yeah.
access, prestige? Like
Mm.
what's going on?
Yeah, that's such a thoughtful question, and honestly, a question that I find myself asking, quite often. And I mean, full disclosure, and I've been very candid about this in other conversations too. But I think it, for any of us, right? It took me a bit to find my voice and to
Mm,
find the ways that felt authentic to me to show up in the space. And you're so right. I do think there is a fear element of like, okay, well, I kind of don't want to disrupt the status quo here. This, I might be passionate about this, but maybe speak out about it in like different ways and maybe not sort of to my peers, because unfortunately, like within any sport, right? And maybe not even sport, just anything in life, I think it's very human, sort of like habit or behavior, right? Allison, I'm probably just preaching to the choir here. You're like, I'm
hmm
a therapist. I know these
hmm
things.
say it, girl.
No, but
Right.
there's always like clicks, right? And there's always this desire to feel like, oh, I want to be a part of that, like almost like cool kids club type thing.
hmm
And I think especially in the trail world, it's like it started as such a niche like place to begin with,
Right,
and there's sort of these like founders of the sport, right? And there's nothing wrong with that. That has to inherently happen, right? For any sport or any, I guess, like hobby to grow. But at the same time, I think in the trail space, I've seen that really sort of morph more into gatekeeping, right? As
mm,
opposed to like, oh,
hmm
we helped found this, and like we are wanting to grow it for everyone.
mm,
And that's not to say that I don't see those types of intentions being done, but I just think, it's a little bit frustrating to me though when I see very well-meaning initiatives being brought forward, but those initiatives are maybe being led by like a white woman, right? And
mm,
there's like, that's not to say that like, oh, there's something very very wrong with that. But to our point earlier in this discussion about your role as a female BIPOC therapist, Allison, it's like you have to have that true authentic representation there.
right, right,
There has to be someone leading the ship or a group of people leading the ship who have lived this. They're not
right,
just listening to what other people are telling them and trying to absorb all of that and then wrap it all up into this pretty package and then change the narrative. Like in
right,
theory that would be so wonderful if that was possible, but that's just unfortunately not how it works, right?
right,
um
right.
so yeah, I do feel like there's a fear element. I think also just the sheer lack of numbers, to your point, right?
Mm,
There's not very many of us, so I feel like it can feel very scary to speak
mhm,
out. I have tried my best to connect with other elite athletes in this space who are a part of marginalized groups, but I also find myself being really respectful of the fact that not everyone wants to do that. Not everyone wants to,
right,
and
it
and I
shouldn't
can't.
have to be our burden.
Right,
Mhm,
right. And
Right.
mhm,
and I respect that, and I'm never someone who's like, "Hey, how come you aren't, speaking out about this or joining me with this?" And like, family dynamics, cultural differences, those types of things. But yeah, I do think that it's still like we're still so clearly like a extreme minority that it's not comfortable, right? It's not something where it's like, oh yeah, like we need to just openly speak out about these types of things for everyone. I don't want to like speak for anyone else, but I know these are the types of thoughts that I went through in terms of considering like, okay, should I record this conversation? Should I put it out? Because it's going to create friction, whether that's my intent or not. um, and I think I have personally really had to work with my own therapist about teasing out, right? Like being, sort of going back to my people pleasing ways versus like, no, these are my core values. This is how I live my life. And for me, I get the most sort of pride in myself and my work when I am living out those core values in every aspect of my life, not just being outspoken, in my immediate circle, right? But I can understand how that's not everyone has sort of gone through that journey yet or
Yeah.
come to that
Right.
realization. So,
Yeah, everything that
yeah,
you're saying is absolutely the
Yeah.
stuff that is in the therapy room.
sure.
And
Yeah.
I love this mention of core values though, because I'm
Yeah.
reminded
Right.
of our conversation with Verna Valerio at We Out Here Trail Festival
Yeah.
again.
Yes.
And she mentioned, she said it so beautifully, right? Like she
Yeah.
outlined what her core values are and
Yeah.
that it really allows her to say yes or no to things
Yeah.
simply, right?
Yeah.
It's not
Right.
that the offers or invitations are simple ones or
Hmm.
ones that
Right.
don't require, that are easily dismissed. It's just
Hmm.
that she knows where she stands.
Yeah.
Of course, I'm sure that at some point there may be, questioning around that, but
Yeah.
or questioning around whether she should align with her values or
Yeah.
whether this opportunity is
Hmm.
truly worth it. But yeah, it's such an important practice for all of us to think about what
Right.
matters to us.
Hmm.
And if we say that X matters to us, how is Y action aligned with that? And if
Yeah.
it's not, because we don't always act in alignment because the world
Hmm.
is complex and we
Hmm.
have to make compromises. If we're out of alignment, then how do we process and manage that distress and the
Hmm.
potential harm on other people?
Yeah.
Right. And I think
Right.
that where people often stop is I'm in distress. I'm
Yeah.
going to pretend this isn't happening.
Yeah.
Right. Like
Mm-hmm.
I
Right.
often
Right.
personally struggle with my values and then like capitalism.
Yeah.
One,
Right.
I can't escape it. But two, what does that mean then? Within the realms that I can control, how am I able to live out my values?
Yeah.
But listen, this is not therapy. So let me stop. For therapy, book
Therapy
me on a
session.
book me elsewhere. I want to move on to, right,
Yeah.
like, what are we all excited about?
Mm.
Verna,
Mm.
what are
Yeah.
you excited about with this space that we've created for ourselves?
Well, I think, Allison, you and I have known each other and for what, I don't know how long, but
Yeah.
like,
A long time.
just like, with like running diversity, and we've had like some hard conversations, and uh, I feel like we've been thinking about this for a very long time, about this narrative and being in this space, being a Native woman, and working with brands, working with run companies. It's almost like it's easy to get discouraged, and it's
Mm,
easy just to say, you know what, I'm just done. But I am excited that we can share our experiences. Of course, we can't be very specific, but we've kind of all have the same. What do you say? The experiences that we've had in this space have been hard at times, but at the same time, I think just being with you too and being able to share our experiences and just hear the stories of people that you know that their voices never have been heard, or they have. I think sometimes all this like trail space running, it's taken up by just certain creators or runners. It kind of it dismisses or erases those people who are doing the work, this purposeful driven work for their communities, and that's what I want to hear about,
mm,
and I think that's what I'm excited about.
Yeah,
love it.
I couldn't agree more. I think when we were more in like the organization process and sort of getting each other's quotes on why we were excited about things for press releases, I think the thing that came to the forefront of my mind was I think the three of us and many others in this space too.
Hmm.
I feel like we
Right.
could, there are many others that could be co-hosts with us here doing the work, but I feel like a lot of us have often been doing the work, not like in isolation per se, but like
Right.
kind of a little bit, right? And maybe I also speak from this place too, because like I am more like physically isolated. I live in a rural place in Colorado. So I just personally like sort of internalize that feeling of being siloed often with this type of work. Um, but I just think it's an incredible opportunity for the three of us to bring all of the work and all of our voices together in this way. Like we are always stronger together.
Right.
Mm,
And again, just like what Verna mentioned too, I'm really excited to have these conversations with our guests and and other athletes in this space too, just so that they maybe by us even modeling being more outspoken about these issues and taking up as the full amount of space that we can. I'm hopeful that that will encourage not just our guests to be like vulnerable with us, and to be a little bit more outspoken, but, like our other listeners too. I'm hopeful that this will continue to build momentum and make others who don't feel like as represented and don't see themselves off as often. I'm hopeful that like what we're doing will just impart a little bit more courage to them, and I'm excited about that.
For sure. Yep.
I love that. I love calling it courage.
Yeah.
And speaking of our listeners, we would be remiss if we didn't say thank you to all of the people who supported us on Kickstarter.
Yeah.
Kickstarter
Yes.
is,
Yes.
it is a nail-biting situation.
Yeah.
And we just couldn't be more thankful to know that there are people out there who really want to hear these stories, who really want to hear our insights, who really are thirsty for what they haven't had. So shout out to all of y'all. We appreciate you.
Yes.
And we hope that we do you proud.
Yeah. Thank you so
Yes.
much.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I feel like this is bringing us to the end of our very first Earthmovers podcast. Again, just to underscore what Alison shared, we are so grateful for the support from our listeners, everyone who has contributed on Kickstarter, to our incredible sponsor, our primary sponsor of this podcast for this season, Ultra Running. You can find them at altrarunning.com. Thank you so much. And in the meantime, please hop on, rate, review, subscribe if you're excited about these conversations. Like I said, please subscribe. And we are very excited to keep bringing you all episodes with our upcoming guests and the upcoming conversations between the three of us. Thank you so much for listening.